We're almost like, hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to your 11 a.m. Central Time panel about promoting diversity and inclusivity in esports. So we're very happy to have you guys all here today. Very excited about this panel and the lovely people that we have on. So we're going to go around the room, and everybody's going to go ahead and introduce themselves. So I'll start off. I am AJ. I am the esports coach here at Park University. I've been in my Park esports position for about 2.5 years. I'm also the current chair-elect of the board of directors for NACE, and I also serve as the vice chair of the Kansas City Esports Coalition as well. So we're going to kick it off Brady Bunch style. We'll start with below me, which is Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Manero. I am a doctoral student at Western Kentucky University, and I'm a graduate assistant within the Western Kentucky University Esports program. Prior to being a graduate assistant there, I was 2 years the League of Legends coach, and then before that, I was social media for the program. So I'm really excited to be a part of this, so thank you so much. And yes, go Tops!
All right, and then we'll kick it over this way to Kelly.
Hi, how are you? I'm Kelly Dunbar. I'm the Director of Athletics for Montgomery County Community College in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. I oversee the 8 varsity sports programs that we offer, including our esports program. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Sweet. And last but not least, Mr. Lamar.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Lamar Daniels. I'm the director of the esports program here at Lourdes University. Just about it for the most part. I'll also spotlight as the sprint and hurdles coach here for our track and field program. So pretty excited to kind of discuss this as well.
And he's also on the competition council.
Oh, yeah. My fault. I'm on the competition council as well. Yeah, I do that for NACE as well. Yeah.
Oh, he dabbles. All right, cool. So this panel, again, is all about promoting diversity and inclusivity in our esports programs for our differing institutions here. So honestly, we're just going to open it up, and we're going to have everybody first kind of talk about what diversity specifically looks like at their particular program and institution, since we're all a little bit different. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with you, Jessica, what that looks like for you.
Okay, great. Well, at Western Kentucky University, we are not very diverse. We're in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and our makeup in 2019 was about 80% Caucasian, 8% Black, 3.4% 2 or more races, 2.4% Asian, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're not a very diverse institution here, but our program is very reflective of what kind of our what those statistics are for the overall campus, and that's how it looks like at our institution. We've been very fortunate with the players that we have had. We've had females in the program, we've had people of color in our program, and it reflects our statistics.
Perfect. Kelly.
Yeah, so diversity at our institution, we serve a very diverse population of students from all ages, all colors, all sizes, all genders. Our program reflects that as well. So we serve in our program a lot of female student athletes. We probably have on a 40 person roster four student athletes that are female. We serve those of color. We serve those on the autistic spectrum. We serve, all types of students. And we're really excited for that because it gives opportunity, for everyone. The online students that wouldn't otherwise be able to, come to the college or whatever the case may be. So we're really excited. And again, this topic means a lot to us as we continue to promote diversity in our college athletics program and also our esports program.
All right, Lamar, what about you?
So our program, I think we're very blessed with how our diversity has grown within our program. I would say of current students right now, not counting incoming students, we're about 5 out of our 25 are students of color. What's that? Quick math, what, 20%? Yeah. And then we also have 2 women of our program as well within that number. And then coming into next year, we're bringing on a couple more students of colors as well. It's something that my players will tell you, and I know I have at least one watching. It's something that, is that I make sure it's injected into our program, the importance of just kind of respecting that and acknowledging the diversity of backgrounds and experiences that a number of our student athletes have coming into our program.
Awesome. Very cool. And I'll just talk a little bit about what we've got here for Park. So we do have Park it brings in a lot of international students. So I do have a handful of international students that are a part of my esports program. Last year, my Overwatch program was 50% female and 50% male. So that was something that I was super stoked and really excited about. And then when we started when we launched our first ever League of Legends team, was 3 female and 4 male. So again, just like everybody on this panel, promoting the diversity and inclusivity for our program is something that I have always made sure is at the forefront within not even our recruiting efforts to get student athletes to join our program, but any of the other community activities and events that we do as well. So one of the things, and again, me being a bad mod, I forgot to say at the beginning, if you guys have any questions for our panelists, or you have any topics that you guys would like us to discuss, we do have 10 minutes set aside at the end of the panel to take any Q&A for you guys. So be sure to drop any topics of conversation or questions in the chat as we go throughout the session. One of the first questions my favorite part about discussing this topic is success stories for students and how the efforts that we put into diversity and inclusivity, how those efforts are really shown through in your program. And I'd really like to hear from everybody on this topic as well. So Jessica, what is kind of a success story that you've seen on your campus in your program?
Sure. So for last year, we had a student who graduated, but she was on our program, and she was one of the role models within our program. She played on the Overwatch team, and she was a really good teammate. And we were discussing about how we could have inclusivity in the program, and how we could, study how we could promote inclusivity. And she had mentioned that being a part of the esports program was something that basically saved her college career, that she had felt so alone and so, like sheltered off from a sense of community. And when she became a part of the program, she felt that community lift her up and become successful in everything that she did. She was very, very appreciative of the program and the fact that we had a program. And I think that is one of our biggest success stories.
Perfect. What about you, Kelly?
Yeah, so it's hard. We have, of course, every program has multiple success stories that you could choose from mental health, situations where you see somebody kind of progress. But I think the one that I would choose, when we started our program, we had a Asian female student athlete who really just wanted to get engaged with the program. She had never really played before, but our esports coach, Ryan Plummer, really took her in. She started with Rocket League, and then later on in her collegiate career, she switched over to Overwatch. And she ended up, just progressing and really coming out of her shell. And she actually earned last year the Arthur Ashe Sports Scholar Award that we nominated her for. So we kind of put her in a room, and live streamed it on Twitch to surprise her with that award. And just to see the the esports athletes and her teammates rallied behind her. It was truly something. Our president of the college joined us, and it was just a really, unique time, especially in the world today. And she's just so grateful. And now, she's going to be hopefully going to Temple in Japan to study further, and always have that as our memory. So we're proud of her.
I love that. That's awesome. Lamar, what about you?
To actually think about it, I think as far as a program goes, I think our continuous, building our diversity portfolio, diversity in our kind of roster is our success story. If I wanted to pinpoint or highlight one of my student athletes, one of the, when I came in my first year, she was the only woman that we had on our team. And then, so a bit rougher. We've now since added an additional one, but she's kind of grown into her own, not just within our program, but within the school at large. Was named our student body president for this past year. And so been taking on a lot of other leadership roles around campus and everything like that, which I think is really awesome. And so just kind of see her growth from where, she was at her first year transferring in from another school to kind of now making Lord's her home and kind of feeling like, we have a home within our program as well has been pretty awesome to see.
I love that. And for me, at Park University, I think one of my biggest success stories actually happened this past fall semester. So I had an individual on my Overwatch roster who was non-binary, and there were different pronouns that they would go by depending on the week, depending on the day, depending on just how they felt. And they came up to me one day and they were just like, look, I'd really like to just sit down and really after a while, really warming up to the team and realizing, hey, these are my friends. These are my teammates. These are the people that, I've connected to, and these are, it's your family. It's your little college family. So, they plucked up enough courage, and honestly, we took some time during practice one day and sat down, and they just sort of spoke their truth and how they felt on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. And there were a few of the athletes on the team that had never come across somebody like that before. They had never been it had never been brought to the forefront of their mind before. And to be able to see them kind of embrace it and, hey, whatever you would like to be referred to on whatever day, just let us know. And they were super accommodating. They were super supportive. And honestly, it really kind of helped solidify the team and kind of help bring them all together, again, into their little family. So I think that making sure that there are places within the esports programs for these individuals where they feel like they're in a welcoming environment to come out and say these things to their teammates and to the esports staff is wildly crucial, in my opinion. Another question that we would like to discuss is your students. We can all agree the past year or two we've seen a lot of social issues, social structure really come to the forefront, and there are some athletes that either come to staff members or come to teammates that really want to discuss the issues. So how do you handle those conversations within your program? How do you handle those topics that students really want to have an open dialogue and conversation about? I think, Lamar, this was one that you were interested in thinking about.
Yeah, I can touch on that. So one thing that we do at our program, and it was a little bit more difficult during this COVID year, but I've been really big on student athlete development. It was initially what I planned on going into when I was in grad school until esports kind of took over my life and everything. But every single week, side note, we do a workout program with our team, and every single week we're meeting together. And during that moment is times where I would do some student athlete development initiatives, whether we were reading a book together as a team, whether we were just discussing how our week spent, things like that. I think one of the biggest things to think of as a director, and particularly, and I'm going to just kind of be 100% honest, particularly if odds are you as the person leading the program most likely are not part of a minority of sorts, right? Let's be honest, most of the leaders are white male. I think if you have a leader on your team, and I would hope that you do, that identifies with some minority group, whether race, sexual orientation, gender, I think kind of discussing with them on a side of, hey, this is an idea that I had, or this is something that I'd like to do. What ideas do you have on it? But not necessarily pressuring them to help you lead it out or pressuring them to be involved. I know a lot of times, especially if you look at kind of this time last year, when the movement around George Floyd's murder was going on, a lot of times, sometimes as a Black American, you kind of get thrust into answering all the questions sometimes. And sometimes you don't want to be the person answering all the questions. Sometimes it's just not your personality. But I think if that's something you're like looking at doing, kind of just touching with, your students that kind of identify with that space. And not only ask, maybe they would be comfortable helping out with it, but also ask how do they think would be the best way to, approach the team. As much as we are coaches, and as we are directors, your athletes are going to have a different experience with the team than you will. Your athletes are going to know your team a little bit differently than you will. That's just how it is. And so, sometimes I would hope that you have, whether you have weekly meetings, whether you have monthly meetings with your program, is something you can interject here or there to kind of just be like, hey, this is something we're going to discuss. Now it can be a little bit, I would say just, approach it with some tact, especially if you're at a program where you have one person that is, identified with that minority and the rest of your program isn't, and just kind of be cognizant of that. But I always say, check with the student athletes that you have in your program and just ask them, was this something you'd like us to touch? Is this something that you think would be awesome to kind of discuss with the team? I always think running it by the students in your program is always the best foot forward whenever you're trying to have a full-on discussion about something going on. You always want to run it by the students in your program that is going to affect the most.
Awesome. Does anybody else want to jump in?
I'll go ahead and jump in, if that's okay. Yeah, Lamar had touched on something that was extremely important, is that if you have one person on your team that is in a minority group, you definitely don't want to set them in a position that's going to make them feel ostracized or awkward, especially around their teammates, because like Lamar had said, that might not be their personality. They may not be very comfortable talking about it. And honestly, sometimes you just have to be very, I think, careful in how you approach conversations like that, because it could create some kind of emotional reaction, I think, from a lot of the players. And you have to consider that the players are students and they're also people, and we just have to keep thinking about their emotional well-being as well as their physical well-being and all of that kind of all that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with both Lamar and Jess. I mean, our program from the beginning, when we do our student athlete orientation, our esports coordinator and our female assistant esport coach really do a good job of, hey, we have an open door policy. There's nothing that's off the table. We want to discuss things with you, whether it be mental health, whatever it is. And we've had a lot of student athletes actually come forward with that and appreciate that, because they don't have to. A lot of times people feel like they can't talk about it. We have to be quiet. And so I think our program has done a decent job with that. And it sparked some tough conversations. And, that's a good thing. I mean, that's the only way I think that we can grow, both as, society and people, and especially within our own.
Awesome. And you Kelly touched a little bit on your your esports orientation. So you've got all of your athletes, you've got all your recruits. You guys are going. We're all going into new academic years here, in probably far too soon. So do you guys have any when you're kind of going through your orientation, your esports orientation for your athletes, do you have any contracts, handbooks, pledges? What kind of maybe documents or things do you go over in the orientation process, just to kind of help continue to promote the diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, sure. So we do a couple things. Each semester we do a student-athlete orientation that encompasses pretty much everything from academics, from our academic structure, from how we do study halls, from how we do our fitness component, our mental health component, what support services are there for student athletes, counseling, et cetera. So we try to encompass all of it. We have different speakers come in throughout the college, and we also address the stigmas surrounding esports, and we really try to promote, like, you are now a team, you are now a varsity athletics team and a program, and we want to create from the get-go that sense of belonging that a lot of these student athletes never been a part of before. So we also make them sign we don't make them. This in order to be in our program, this is what is expected of you, and it's a inclusivity, diversity, and inclusivity pledge. That basically says, we're not going to. There's no toxicity. We're not going to be that program that, does that. And if you at all, have issues with that, they can meet with me separately. We also put them through a professional development, kind of like Lamar was talking about. We partner with our local group, Philly Esports, and they do a whole professional development where it touches on how do you conduct yourself? How do you, what does your brand look like? You're not only representing the college, but you're also representing yourself. It touches on social media. It touches on the interview process. So we really try to upfront, here's our program, here's your expectations, here's the inclusivity piece. And it's really getting them to buy in at the beginning, and we've seen success with that so far.
I'm sorry. I'm just so polite. I'll let everybody speak before me if I could. But yeah, we have something similar where we bring in professionals from our university to discuss topics like Title IX. What's the acceptable way to handle yourself around others within practices and when you're out together. And then we have the students sign a code of conduct that covers everything within the program, what they can expect, the expectations of them as a student athlete. And it's really important that they read through that, because also within that code of conduct, there are the consequences of if you do not follow that code of conduct. And we handle, things like that very seriously. We're also working on having our students come in early. This is something that we're setting up this year, where they come in early and we do give them that professional development, because it is very important that they think about how they handle themselves, especially on social media, because now we have social media everywhere. That's so simple. It's on your phone. So it's very important that they consider things like that now, that if they sign that code of conduct and if they agree to be a player and they wear that jersey, they have to think about things that are bigger than themselves now.
So for here at Lords, we do a general student athlete kind of orientation. Lost the word for a second. And so all of our student athletes, which we're included in as well, will meet together, and the athletics program will have a number of people come and speak. President, faculty athletics representative, athletic trainers, the whole 9 yards. And then all of our Sorry, my lights are automatic. So all of our student athletes are charged with signing the student athlete pledge online. So that's what we have to do on the athletic side. As far as like the esports team side, my players will tell you all the time, I absolutely hate writing stuff. So we don't have like a huge rule book. And I know like some programs do like, 3 or 4 page documents of like, what their programs. Mine is just 1 page. It's 1 page and it's some bullet notes. And because that, my players know that's how I am. But the number one rule I have on there, the first rule, and this was the first rule I established when I walked into the program, was respect others. And I feel like everything else falls under that. That's, respecting myself, respecting your other teammates, respecting other coaches on campus and other staff on campus, respecting your waiter when you're at Buffalo Wild Wings, right? Whether it's on campus, whether it's off campus, and I feel like everything else falls in that. I feel like you respect everybody else. That means you'll work hard at practice. That means you'll, make sure you're going to class so you'll stay eligible for your team. That means that you'll, respect how everybody else is in the program and their life, experiences and things like that. And so that kind of, that's my number one rule. That's the very first rule that kind of everything else falls under. And so I think that kind of, helps shape us and help guides our program forward because they know that's the most important thing to me from the jump. From day one, that's the most important thing to me. And I think it also additionally helps when, you have somebody who is, I like things a little bit easier. You have somebody who's diverse that is the head of the program, right? And so whether they know it or not, they're already actively getting experience with respecting somebody who is a minority in some way, shape, or form, right? And so I think that kind of helps lead the rest of the program just by experience and just by them following my lead. That kind of shapes everything else that we do.
Awesome. Okay, so we've gone through orientation. We've had our athletes kind of sign off on our pledges and any contracts that we have for them. So what happens when that pledge is broken? What happens when we have an athlete that is not upholding the standards of your esports program when it comes to toxicity, bullying based off of diversity and inclusivity? Jessica, what do you have in place?
Okay, so if somebody is being toxic or they're being a bully or creating a hostile environment for somebody else on the teams, we take that as a kind of case-by-case situation where we will, they have the code of conduct, they know what's going to happen. We will have a meeting with them one-on-one and ask, what's going on, what's happening here. We'll, discuss this with that person, and then we'll discuss it with the person that perhaps they are engaging in that activity with and see their side of things and just try to kind of mediate between that. And if it's, if it's really, bad, we will take action against it. We'll bench them. We'll do, it's right there in the code of conduct. At every step that we take, we have a paper trail to follow back up on. And, it's just, that's something that we don't tolerate, and we make sure that they know that. And it's very important, and we direct them to everything that we have. We have a diversity, inclusion, and equality website at WKU where they list all the support services that people can have. If there is a problem, they can report that problem to there. If they don't feel comfortable talking to anybody in our program, which hasn't been the case so far. But, at least that option is there for them too. But yeah, if somebody is being toxic, there's just, they know the steps that's going to happen, and we take it by case.
Yeah, I think likewise, us also, we have a tier policy, basically kind of mirrors what's already out there as far as discipline. A lot of it is meetings, because I'm a firm believer of there's always room for second chances. And I really just, I'm big on, I don't want to, here's our standards. If you break them, we're going to try to help you fix the issue. I don't want you to say you're cut, that's it. It's a hard balance. But at the same time, we want to help grow these student athletes. And my job is for them to come out of this program, in a better place. So we kind of, like I said, have a tier system where we've taken somebody out of the league. You've done this, you're out of the league. But at the same time, we've also helped this person on the back end with counseling and so forth to try to help guide them in a better direction.
For us, I think kind of what Jessica was saying is case by case basis. And I think one thing I try to do, and this is something that I've had to work on. I can already see Kareem in here in the chat, and so he's probably going to remember this. One thing I've had to work on is a little bit of patience, and sometimes just remembering that I was once in their shoes, as not only as a student athlete before, but also as a immature person and somebody who's still growing in my own maturity. And so, sometimes whereas, I would take, that first sign of, maybe a disrespect toward myself or toward somebody else, and immediately act on it. Sometimes I try to case by case basis think about, what is going on, what is being said, why is, X person acting like this or that, and try to get to the root of the issue. And sometimes that's helped when I've remembered, my own experiences as a student athlete, or remember where I was. And then sometimes it's, a lot of times it will be that one-on-one conversation. But a big thing that's helped is just kind of explaining. I think sometimes people say stuff or do stuff, they don't really understand why it is that you shouldn't be doing it, or why it is that affects people a certain way, or why it is it's insensitive in a diversity aspect or an inclusion aspect. And so sometimes that's really helped out where, it helps me kind of at the end of the day, right? We're kind of teachers at the end of the day, right? And it helps you still teach and, raise these people to end up being positive, adults once they leave here. So that case by case basis, but also, taking the time and being patient that sometimes people just need to learn has been really good for me.
Yeah. And then we've got about 20 minutes left of the panel. So if anybody, again, has any topics that they would like to have the panel touch on or discuss, or has any questions, just be sure to keep putting them in the chat. But Miles Dean, he had a question that I was actually kind of curious about myself and wanted to hear you guys on. How do you attract or procure international students? Is there a website or a tool that you guys use? And honestly, not even just international students. I'm also curious how you guys go about your recruiting process. How has your recruiting process changed, or what kind of safe holes do you have in place where you make sure throughout your process that you are, following the diversity and inclusivity? Jessica, how about you?
Sure. So we're always trying to find better ways to recruit for our program. And right now, we pretty much have partnered with our admissions program to send out emails. And it's kind of like they advertise through all of their, I guess, ways that they can. And it kind of funnels down into the program as opportunities within esports. They say you can become this, or you can become that, or you can, pair it very well with this kind of program. But so admissions will do that. We post on our social media. We post on our website. We post on our Discord. And we also try to reach out to our existing students on campus. And right now it's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty limited to just from WKU, current students. And then we try to reach out to the surrounding areas through our social, which has been productive, but right now we're looking into ways that we can actually reach out even further. And I think that there's a lot of websites out there that can help with that, and that we're considering. And we also try to reach out to the local high schools, because I think our high schools have a pretty diverse background, makeup in them too. So we're going to be starting to reach out to our high schools and creating those contacts and creating that partnership with them, just to try to try to get as many students in our program and interested in esports as.
So for us on our end, one of the platforms, I guess, programs that I use a good amount as far as recruiting, NCSA, something that used on the traditional athletic side, and I think they do a solid job on the esports side as well. And I'll actively look to through there, because there's hundreds, sometimes thousands of kids looking for whatever position you might need. I think it's completely fine if you are actively searching for people who are diverse that you want to add to your program. I know it's been a big hot topic of debate as far as, make sure that somebody, necessarily deserves it and they're not getting it because they're a minority or whatnot, which obviously I think any one of us will do no matter what, right? If you're bringing someone into your program, I'm not saying just bring them in solely off of that, but, I think it's completely fine to actively search that out. I definitely want more women into our program. We have 2 right now, and for me, that's not enough. It's not good enough as far as where I want us to be. And so actively, if I am on that website, and I see women that are on the program, I actively, be more proactive in reaching out and searching them. But I think something that we all can help on is, making sure that, so I'm pretty sure most of us in here have probably had high schools reach out to us to discuss how they can have programs, what they can do. Actively tell them to make sure their programs are as inclusive as possible. Because at this point, it gets a little bit difficult with, honestly, people of color and women to get into the college esports scene because they're not there at the high school level all the time. Whether, on the women's side, because of just how the scene hasn't been inclusive to them, whether on sometimes the people of color side where it's a higher barrier of entry as far as like the cost goes. And those of you who heard me speak last year, that was a big point that I was making. So if you hear high schools talking about, they want to add programs, they're reaching out to you, they're emailing you, make sure that they do their due diligence at, making it as inclusive as possible. So that way, 3 or 4 years down the road, when those kids start to roll out, those kids start to graduate, that pool that we're able to choose from is bigger. I think that's a big reason why our programs aren't as diverse, is because like the pool of diverse candidates aren't that large, because there's a myriad of factors that stop diverse candidates from getting into esports in general. So I think it's going to take a while, but I think that's the biggest thing we all can do as directors, not even just within your program, but out in our scene as well, is make sure those high schools make their programs as diverse as possible.
Yeah, and I think on our end, so we don't have dorms at our institution, so we're really grassroots with our marketing. But we work closely with our marketing department. So, for example, we've got a billboard on one of the major highways here. It's Monco for All, and it's our esport athlete holding, a controller, one of our diverse student athletes. So that type of stuff where our marketing is really stepped up with this opportunity that we offer the students. We also do a lot, like everyone spoke of with our local high schools. We're starting a high school league where the championship, for example, will be played in our arena. Things like that where, it's hard. I mean, everybody's got great programs now, and it's really kind of coming alive. And like I said, sometimes I feel like we're at a disadvantage because we don't have dorms, but at the same time, you can also save money and come to our institution. So it's kind of how our coaches and our esport coordinator really promote the program and the holistic approach that we offer, which we think is different from other local programs that we have.
I kind of want, if it's fine, follow up on that, AJ. That's all right. One of the biggest things that I want people to kind of take away from this is that, in respect to the 74 of you who are here, increase in diversity, increase in inclusion isn't something that's an overnight thing. It's something that has to be worked on day to day. And, hopefully, and I respect everybody coming in here, but I hope, people aren't coming in here and be like, hey, I want to make my program diverse. Bam, all right, I come here, I get all this info. Next year, my entire program is going to look different. It doesn't work that way. It has to be something that you are making sure that your program, the student kids in your program understand how important it is to you, but it's something that we have to build into the, that's why I was touching on the high school aspect. It's something that you have to build in so that years and years it exponentially grows. It's not something that can change overnight, but it's something that we actively can all take steps doing every single day to improve that.
And if I could add one more thing, I'm sorry. to add to Lamar. One of the ways, especially if you're looking at female participation, one of the things that we do for our program is we have faculty mentors. So we really engage the faculty at our institution. And both of our faculty mentors are in the communication IT field, and they're both female. And so they really promote our program through their program, through the STEM program, and really try to it helps having two female faculty advisors for us that can really kind of go out, make presentations. So it's pretty much an extra two coaches, but it also makes those female student athletes feel more comfortable. Oh, okay, there's a female athletic director, there's a female assistant coach. They have two faculty mentors that are female. Just something, it could be like Lamar said, just a starting point. Maybe you do that, and then it kind of can grow from there.
Awesome. So we got about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to start grabbing some of the questions from the chat. So one of the questions, have y'all seen language used with your programs, either with competition or marketing? And how do you see that impact your mission of DEI efforts? The example given was the term of "let's go boys," or the teams assuming that their competition are men based on the pronouns that they use, like "he is on the left," "he is cracked," etc. Who kind of wants to talk about that, and how has that kind of impacted your DEI efforts so far?
I mean, okay, so it's very hard to touch on this question. It's a good question. When we're broadcasting for League of Legends, they usually use the pronoun for the champion that they're playing, which is interesting. And also, we try to make sure that within the program, people don't use any kind of wording that could possibly be like he, she pronouns, but more like "let's go gamer," or like "this gamer's on over here," or something like that. It's very interesting how they come up with words to replace those kinds of pronouns. But that's pretty much, that's how our program has kind of evolved, and it's, there's still a way to go, but that's what I've known.
I think it's a solid point that I never really realized. But yeah, Jessica's right. Usually it's the pronoun of the character that's being played, and I never really thought about it until now. So, I mean, I'm just following up with that. It's really, really interesting. I mean, I haven't had any, that necessarily discussed with me, and I would like to think that this question seems like particularly the women in our program. I would like to think that they'd be, open to, if they have a problem with it, letting me know, and we, kind of address it from there. But yeah, usually does seem like it's, especially if you're playing something like League of Legends or Overwatch, it's the character. Usually it's like the pronoun of the character that gets used for the most part.
Cool. I want to touch on, we've got about 5 minutes left, but I want to touch on Alejandro's question. I think it's a really good one. Do you believe that there is a gap in diversity, specifically racial, because of game trends and of economic reasons that trend minorities to console gaming or specific game typologies? What steps can schools make to address this? And does it mean transitioning students to more popular games in CPU gaming, or morphing what games are played? I think for me specifically, I would want to touch on this a little bit. I think that I think going back to the high school space and having the high school teams, it's all about the ability to grab a hold of those stations, right? The ability to have access. It's all accessibility. So if you've got a high school program that has the computer lab or what have you, where these students are able to access this equipment, it could give them the ability to have access to games and to get into games that they're really going to end up enjoying and want to pursue at the collegiate level just because they have the access. So I think that starting it in the high schools and even middle schools. I honestly talked to a middle school a couple of months ago that came up to me and said, hey, we want to be like the first middle school in our district to like offer, they're starting with like, esports club, but they wanted to be the first to be able to get this equipment, get it in the hands of the students so they are able to explore their options and see what it is that really resonates with them. Who else wants to touch on this one? I think this is a good one.
If it's okay if I could jump in. Before COVID, we were planning an initiative called Women in Esports, and we were going to have it be a club on our campus. And the reason we wanted it to be specifically geared towards women is because there's a stereotype or whatever that women don't play like the hardcore esport games, and that's not true at all, but there's still that stigma there, that stereotype. And I'm sure that a lot of other minorities kind of feel like maybe there's a stereotype. So I wanted to have women in esports so they could come into the arena and play whatever the heck they wanted to play, really, like just to get them exposed to a game. And they have the computer, or they have a console there that they can play. And sometimes they play games that maybe other people don't think is considered esports. Like, for example, I play World of Warcraft, and I like to do Mythic Dungeons in World of Warcraft. And a lot of people don't think that that's esports, but you're trying to get a goal. You're working together as a team. You're studying the strategies. I mean, it fits all the requirements, but like maybe that could make somebody feel like they're not involved in that, or they don't want to do that, or they don't even, it's all about bringing the community in and making them feel like it's okay. Like, this is what we're here for. And we want to introduce you to all of these different things that we have available for you. And that includes our everything we have, basically.
I 100% do believe like that's an issue as far as like the economic reasons, and that's something, like I said, I touched on last year. And I think the way that we can help is, if you can think, and I'm thinking of, so we're in Northwest Ohio, and I grew up actually here in this area. Thinking about the high schools in our area that have esports or have started to add esports, they're mainly the high schools that are kind of out in the suburbs, and kind of the more well-off high schools. And just kind of thinking about, which ones have had access to being able to promote that, being able to add the programs to their program, to their schools. And so I think one of the biggest ways you can help at schools is that, make sure that it's, as much as you can, try to help it be at, places that have public access. I had a couple of days ago, somebody call our Toledo Public Libraries trying to add, places in the libraries to be able to have, kind of esports facilities in there. I've had sometimes talking to some people at Toledo Public Schools. But right now I look at it, and in our area, it's all the schools that are in the suburbs of Toledo and not Toledo itself. I do think it is a huge issue. Kareem kind of, my student, he responded as far as, the stereotypes feed into it as well. But I do also think it's a cost issue as well. It's a lot easier for a parent to be able to be like, hey, we'll pay $400, $500 for, a PlayStation or an Xbox, and, just roll from there, versus thinking about what it takes to, buy the parts for a computer or buy a whole computer or things like that, especially like maybe you already have a computer at home. It's a cost that not everybody sees is doable. And I do think it's one of the biggest factors that limits kind of the diversity in just kind of our scene in general. And it's something I talk about all the time. I try to make sure that I'm working, if you can in any way, shape, or form work with somewhere that is a public access space, whether it's a public school, whether it's a public library, something of that, whether it's your Parks and Rec department that's looking to get involved with it, I think that's the best, because it makes it provided to as many people as possible, versus sometimes, at least from what I've seen in our area, it being select schools that have the funds to be able to do it.
Yeah, and we're in an open access college, so we that's one of the things that we promote. Like when we talk at open houses, or people are like, well, what does it cost to join the program? And nothing. You come here as long as you're a full-time student. You can use our PCs, we can consoles. That's what you get for coming to the college. So kind of twisting it and really saying that, it doesn't cost anything as long as you kind of maintain that discipline as a student athlete. Our facilities are open.
Sweet. Well, we are literally right up to our time. So I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. I hope that everybody in the chat got some really good tidbits. I know a lot of the people on this panel are always open and willing to have discussions about this topic and anything else that you might have questions about. So be sure to follow them on Run the World and Twitter and Discord and all of that other fun stuff. So starting at noon, they're going to have lunch with NACE. So grab your sandwiches and log in for that. And then when we get back to panel starting at 1 o'clock, you're going to have Recruiting 101. That's going to be with Adam and Jackie, Luke, and Eugene. So stay tuned for that, everybody. And thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.